Good morning. Hello, hello, hello. Is anyone out there? Is anybody out there? This morning I got Tim's this morning. The Canadian tradition of Tim's. I recently looked at Google Maps of Dubai. I've never been to Dubai, but I looked at the Google Maps for it, and apparently there's like a giant Tim Hortons in Dubai. That, if you had asked my childhood self if I expected that to be a thing, I would have said no. Alright, so good morning. It's Monday. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you're off to work or having a good work day if you're not off to work, if you're already at work. I'll give you some weather just to start off the day. We got a high of 8 today. High of 8. Got 2 degrees right now. It feels like -3. It's few clouds, very sunny. This is Toronto weather. So it's cold, still kind of cold, but you know, it's starting to get sunnier, starting to get springy. I went to an equinox party yesterday where we discussed UBI, and that's what I was going to discuss right now. UBI. I just watched David Pakman. I just watched him do a little discussion of UBI on his, what does he think are the next sort of big things on the horizon. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of nuance to the UBI conversation. I wonder who's going to be paying the UBI. Do people think that, I mean, these companies, right, when we talk about income inequality, we have some companies right now that are so large, right? They're larger than any government. I mean, to a degree, obviously not like as a whole, but the amount of money that they have on their books is just so astronomical. And the amount of power they exert in the world in terms of technology and vision comparatively to, say, a government, right? I mean, I guess I just see these different models. Like, I guess I could see a model where governments kind of distribute UBI in the same way that they do welfare programs or something like that. But then that doesn't, in a way that feels almost superfluous. It feels like you could do away with a lot of what government does if you had a UBI. I guess there are 2 schools of thought on UBI, which is sort of what I've heard is the, I guess, more left-wing school, which is that we want to add UBI to our list of already powerful or useful programs, social programs and things like that. Whereas other people would say we want to get rid of all the other social programs, almost like the government itself to a large degree, and then you just replace it with this payment. And the question is, like, who's making that payment? Like, do we all work for a company? Like, I was thinking about distributed labor. Like, is there sort of going to be this day where we're all, like, almost like a CAPTCHA or a reCAPTCHA, where we're all doing micro transactional labor actions? Like, we're all just walking around, like, making tiny, you know, our footsteps are harnessed and put into a machine or put into a battery. Our discussions are harnessed and sold to advertisers and done all the things. Like we calculate basically the value of a human being to the rest of the world, and then we basically just pay humans to extract that surplus value from each human. Like if we're just walking around, like I don't know. I just see that as a weird potential future model for how UBI would work. It's almost like we're all working for these giant tech companies almost by accident, just through our daily actions, and then our daily actions are being somehow translated into wealth, and then that wealth is like distributed among the actors within the system, and then they basically just do voluntary things all day to, you know, to better the world or whatever, better the world, destroy the world, whatever they want to do. It's voluntary, right? And UBI would almost be this like sort of labor force, right? But then there's another, I guess the other idea is like a UBI of like almost like an insurance UBI, like what we have now in a sense, but it's almost like everybody's entitled to it all the time, some sort of welfare or EI or something like that. Medicare, Medicaid, those kinds of programs, right? But then they would just be, but I guess then the question becomes who's paying for it, and is it disproportional? Like you almost get into this Rawls-Nozick problem where you get this kind of Rawlsian, like beautiful UBI utopia social contract style, but then you kind of get this Nozick coming in being like, well, who's paying for the UBI, and did we extract the UBI from them in a just way? Because if we didn't, then the whole system was just a different kinds of injustice in the first place. But I guess that's the thing, when you're talking about these things, part of me wonders if we need to be discussing it from a justice perspective. Like, is this something we're doing for justice, or are we actually trying to look at human problems as if they were, you know, a software problem or a computer problem, and then we're saying, okay, we have this basically just a bunch of data points, and we need those data points to, you know, meet up with this objective. We have this objective at the end, ill-defined objective. I mean, maybe that's the part of the problem. That's part of why I'm on YouTube. Why I'm trying to be on YouTube at all is because I do notice that there's a larger conversation happening around these kinds of values and the you know, these kind of imperatives. Like, what are we actually trying to work towards? I think that's the kind of conversation that humanity finds it challenging to have. I mean, not everybody, and people are having it all the time, but it's why systems function just haphazardly a lot of the times, right? Because people are functioning without understanding the imperative. So, I don't know. Anyways, that was a ramble. But yeah, UBI, I don't know, it's interesting. If you have thoughts on UBI, you should leave comments about it, or chat with me about it sometime. Yeah. What else was going on? So I'm reading this book by Bessel Van Der Kolk. It's called The Body Keeps Score. So I've been reading about it, and it's interesting. I feel like maybe, I mean, a lot of people can relate to going through some degree of trauma. I mean, this book is right to go into people with sort of adequate, serious trauma, like, oh, I accidentally, you know, got in an accident that killed somebody really important to me, or something, you know, serious trauma, death and dying and bleeding and, you know, serious abuse and things like that. But I do think that we all suffer forms of trauma. Well, maybe not all of us. I shouldn't be presumptuous, but a lot of people suffer mild forms of trauma. And I'm finding this book really enlightening. It's kind of, you know, there's a slight indictment of, I mean, so far I'm not too far into it, but there's a little bit of an indictment towards like the current kind of psychiatric system, slightly. I mean, I guess it's interesting to see how we kind of tout things. It's almost like when bloodletting was what we used to do in medicine, right? People used to do this bloodletting thing. I'm sure at some point that was a breakthrough, where someone had some success with it, and they said, this is a breakthrough, and then they just started doing it. Doctors, just bloodletting everywhere, bloodletting. And then at some point, they were like, oh, this is terrible. We're actually doing this terrible thing. And I think psychiatry has hit some weird point, and this book is kind of illustrating that to some degree where I'm at in it. I'm still early in the book. It's definitely illustrating that, like, you know, the people used to sort of deal with a lot of their mental health issues in a different way, and, you know, since sort of chemical SSRIs and things like that, it's almost like we had some success with them. People started prescribing them, but now they're just this kind of rife, like, the world is rife with people taking these kind of drugs, and I guess what he's discussing is maybe that they're not dealing with the underlying trauma, right? That a lot of mental health is related, there's not all of it, but a lot of it is related to a type of trauma that people have experienced, and they're not processing that trauma appropriately. And part of that processing is also having a place in which you feel safe to process that trauma. And I think a lot of times what's happening in a lot of places in the world is that people are so traumatized, and because they're traumatized, they lack the tools, because there's entire communities of trauma, right? People experience trauma almost as communities, and people who are traumatized almost find each other as a matter of desire to almost like relate and heal and things like that. But there are a lot of problems with repeating traumas, and that's kind of what I'm getting into. People tend to like really repeat their traumas. I don't know if he's probably going to get into that more, so I'll probably understand it more as I go, but it's pretty fascinating because I've even seen that in my own life, and I think it's really important to slow down and really not relive your trauma, but kind of pick it apart and describe it. I mean, he even offered that, Dr. Bessel Van Der Kolk. You know what? I'll link a talk to him down below later. But he even recommends like going through the trauma, like piece by piece, or like that was one. I don't know if he recommended it. I think that was even a student of his who came up with this exercise or something. I'm not sure. I'm a little bit noisy in the head. But anyways, he was basically saying that it's good to pick it apart, like tear it down to the very sort of details of what you were experiencing and write that down, and you'll find that like that will help you to understand exactly what you were feeling. And I think that's helpful. I mean, even just running through in my head about some of the sort of more traumatic or you know, hurtful things I've experienced in my life, or I mean, a lot of times it's actually what you've done to others, which is a very interesting thing about, you know, PTSD specifically. They talk about a lot is like it's more that you're afraid of going back to the place in which you hurt somebody and it was out of your character, or almost anything where you felt you were pushed out of your own character to such a degree that you almost became like a monster that you now regret being. And that's what people really can't handle. So it's like the thought of going back to that place where you became a monster is actually what causes the stress response to some degree. It's not just the situation itself. It's actually like your fear of becoming that person that you don't want to be, or something. Like, again, this is a little bit, I'm not Bessel Van Der Kolk, but I am reading his book. Okay, well, I'm going to start playing some music and doing some drawing, because that's what we do here. And I will save you from my train of ums. Let me just move my microphone, and we'll be playing the other side of the first Burning Dirt session tape from Everlasting House of Superjoy, made by me circa 2010 to 2013. Hello? Am I back? Yeah. I'm back. Plugging in the tape deck. I've got this is very nice and vintage. Like, I've got this universal AC adapter plug. And this nice old, this red, I showed it off last time, this red Panasonic tape deck. It's definitely, this looks about as 80s as me. This is pretty 80s. Yes. So, side B. Here we go. Burning Dirt session. Side B. What will we have in store? I don't even know what to expect. Sorry if this sucks. I don't always know what's on these tapes. I forget. Whoa. Razzie for like worst sound quality. I think I recorded this onto a bad tape deck through a microphone, playing from a tiny amplifier with all my gear hooked up with a shitty mixer, or like a bad quality mixer. Pardon my swearing. Yeah, funny. And then now played through the same tape deck that I used to record it, and from the tape deck into a microphone. That's got to be some sort of terrible sound quality benchmark. Mix? I don't know. We'll see. I don't remember. Some kind of alternate cut. think the lyrics right now are "I'll save my days for face to face." It's kind of interesting. Think about where social media is at now. Marathon remix. That's what I'll call this if I ever release it. The Marathon remix. Oh, it sounds like it's gonna end soon. I can sense my sense of timing. On one of these 8 beats. Yeah. Okay, that was the side. Hello? Yeah. So that was that side. Yeah, B side. Burning Dirt. That was a fun project. I still have 9 tapes to take y'all through. It's gonna take a while. So I was just drawing. It's great. I'm really working on this drawing. It's coming along. What was I thinking about? I was thinking about, I'm going to leave you with these kind of thoughts. So if being on YouTube is like it feels like there's a panopticonic element about YouTube in that I have this camera pointing at me. The question is, how is YouTube changing my behavior? But then, how is it changing your behavior as a viewer and my behavior as a creator? So I'm going to leave you with that thought. As a human, actually. Forget about as a viewer or creator. How is it changing our behavior as humans? All right, I'm going to leave you with that. Have a wonderful Monday. Enjoy your coffees and your work days and your lives and your friends, and have a wonderful sunny day. Enjoy some sun if you're in the sun. If you're in the shade, enjoy the shade. If you're in the rain, don't drink it. All right. Peace. Happy Monday, y'all. Bye. Oh, don't forget to like, dislike, subscribe. Bye.